But we're going to be moving on to sort of some of the stuff that I think is more unique and maybe you guys haven't seen before. Hopefully, I'll be introducing you to something new. If you were here last week, we watched an episode of a show called You Are There. The episode was about the Titanic. It was a lot of fun. A lot of you guys really seemed to enjoy it. If you weren't there, it's a show from the 1950s. It has Walter Cronkite as like the main narrator dude. So while he's like on the main news, we got a young Walter Cronkite doing the news. He's also doing this show called You Are There, which is like the news throughout history. Like you send like a news crew into the past as if they are covering events as they are going on. He's beatboxing. So I think it's absolutely wonderful. And I hope you guys end up enjoying it. If you like this, you should definitely check out the stream from last week where we did the one on the Titanic. And I have one for the members where they covered the American Revolution. So one of the fun details about this show that I think is definitely worth highlighting, it's written by a group of, I think, 3 communist writers in the United States who had been blacklisted during the McCarthy era. So McCarthy's like cracking down on communist thought in America, and when you get blacklisted, you're not supposed to be employed in Hollywood or whatever. And sometimes that worked, but very often a lot of these blacklisted writers would just work under different names or work anonymously or all that. So there is like a communist presence behind the writing of the show, but it doesn't really seep too much into the content. What does seep into the content is the idea of people who are oppressed for their ideas, which they were. And that's a common theme you find throughout the series when they cover things like the Salem witch trials. Maybe not the best example. But when they cover Socrates, absolutely. This is like the perfect example of the type of story that they often lean into. Did they do the Salem witch trials, or did I make that up in my head? They might not have done an episode on that. I don't know. Okay, so let's see what we got here. Volume's up, and we'll show you what it's all about. Sorry, it's not responding. There we go.
.399 BC, the death of Socrates. You are there.
Walter Cronkite reporting, 399 BC. In Athens, Greece, the Hellenistic world is waiting the climax of the trial and condemnation of the philosopher Socrates. Before the sun goes down today, Socrates must, according to Athenian law, perform his own execution and drink the poison hemlock. Charged with corruption of the youth and refusing to recognize the accepted gods of the state, the barefooted sage denied the accusations, and when judged guilty on an almost evenly divided vote, he refused to propose a reasonable fine as his punishment.
So it's very interesting. Walter Cronkite reports this as if it's going on right now. Not like this is him talking about history. He's talking about it as if this is actively happening. When they send the cameras in to talk to the people, they do it as if like these are actual investigative reporters, and we just kind of have to forget the fact that video cameras and news crews didn't exist back then. Otherwise, it's incredibly immersive.
He thus made a compromise impossible and all but invited the death sentence. Now, as the moment of doom is rapidly approaching, the strange fact is that no one in Athens wants Socrates to die. His enemies, led by the democratic politician Anytus, indeed sought to silence him, but not to martyr him. And his friends, we are told, are still desperately trying to find some way out of this tragic entanglement and save Socrates from the fatal cut. We take you now to Athens, outside the prison where Socrates is being held. All things are as they were then, except...
You are there.
This is Harry Marble. We are watching the sinking sun here and counting the minutes in the waning light. Just behind that wall is the cell in which Socrates is awaiting the end. This morning, a group of philosophers, close friends, among them Crito and Apollodorus, were permitted inside, and we were informed by the authorities that they have been conversing with Socrates all day. An hour ago, Xantippe, the philosopher's wife, entered the prison, and this was taken as a fearful sign that all preparations have been irrevocably made to carry out the death sentence, although there are still those who cannot believe that Anytus will be so foolish and stubborn as to allow Socrates to die against the will of the great majority of Athenians of all factions. There is still a desperate hope here that somehow, before the sun goes down, the proud philosopher will emerge alive, and tomorrow they will see him as usual in the marketplace or the theater, the Lyceum, or on the steps of the Acropolis, debating the nature of truth, honor, courage, and justice. There you see Aristophanes, the famous playwright of satirical comedies. He has no doubt just come from the theater of Dionysius, where his play Lysistrata is in rehearsal. It was Aristophanes' play, The Clouds, which Socrates mentioned at the trial as an example of the work of some of his enemies to discredit him. Citizen Aristophanes, one moment. Do you...
So a lot of the commentary does have the aid of hindsight a little bit and doesn't always necessarily perfectly represent the people of the time. It's the interviews of the people from the time that are supposed to represent those broad ideas. And with the Titanic thing, it's not like they're necessarily saying things that are like quoted from the people at the time or anything like that. Though in the American Revolution thing, they got pretty close to like paraphrasing some stuff that I've read, but that's about it. It's more they're representing like the different sides of these controversial moments in history and kind of trying to explain a larger mindset rather than any individual mindset.
You believe that Socrates should die for his crimes?
What crimes? He's committed no crimes. Socrates has strong beliefs and opinions, but so have I. So has any man of intellect. Anytus and his ignorant mob cannot silence criticism of themselves by silencing Socrates. Only stupid men would get Athens into such a monstrous predicament as condemning to death one of our most prominent thinkers, and being stupid men, they don't know now how to get out of it. Anytus and his fumbling, sodden greed for rule and power will yet kill us all, I'm sure.
But Socrates...
So think of everything that he's saying here, but like replace Socrates with like the communist intellectuals of the time, the thinkers who are having their ideas repressed. And during the McCarthy era, it could be incredibly strict. Like, there are plenty of people who got called out for being communists who were not actually communists. And these guys, these writers behind this show, who are blacklisted communist writers, are kind of communicating through history how absurd it is to repress somebody for having strong or different beliefs. And they do it so well. And this is like the perfect example to use.
himself said that you, Aristophanes, gave credence to the accusations against him in your play, The Clouds.
In my play, The Clouds, I lampooned Socrates as mercilessly as I knew how. I disagreed with his philosophy, and I still do. But that was in a play, not a public trial, when Socrates or anyone had the privilege of doing the same to me.
Didn't Meletus say that he and others were inflamed against Socrates as a result of The Clouds?
Oh, Meletus, poor poet, poor in rhyme and poorer still in reason.
Ooh, burn.
In my play, I portrayed a man like Socrates who ran a thinking shop. And in one of my better scenes, I showed him walking along, looking up at the sky and falling down a hole in his path. But that was comedy. Not one of my best comedies.
I understand you also showed how Socrates taught young men to cheat payment of their debts and to beat their own fathers, and if I'm not mistaken, also to deny the existence of the gods.
That's true, and what Socrates taught did result in such instances. I witnessed them myself.
Aren't these also the nature of the charges that Meletus made against Socrates?
I knew they would blame me. Meletus is covering up his own guilt. He's preparing for the day when he himself will be brought before the judges.
Socrates is kind of a fun little symbol of freedom of thought and freedom of religion in a lot of ways. Like, and I'm kind of surprised that his memory is not invoked as much in conversations of freedom of speech and freedom of religion in the United States anymore. Maybe it's like not enough people know the story super well, but I feel like it's a wonderful uh, story to really signify why uh, freedom of speech and freedom of conscience is important.
I'm a playwright. I'm not an executioner.
It does feel a little bit like if I were to invoke the name of Socrates in a debate with somebody online, I would seem kind of like an intellectual snob, wouldn't I? I can kind of see why that might not make my argument seem the most relatable. I've answered my own question. There we go.
Meletus was directly ordered by Anytus to accuse Socrates.
Why does Anytus hate Socrates?
Well, Socrates has always made a mockery of this democracy by alphabetical rotation as is being practiced here in Athens. Under these democratic rules, our most important and difficult decisions of government are given to barbers, shoemakers, potters, farmers, and with equal solemnity to sweepers and trash collectors.
Did Socrates corrupt Anytus' son?
No one can very well corrupt an honest man.
Do you think there is any chance that Socrates might yet be saved?
I hope that he will. I think that he will not. But valuing what is most precious to me, my greatest concern at the moment is to protect myself.
Thank you, Aristophanes. Someone has just come out of the prison. It is Crito, close friend of Socrates. He's going to speak to us.
What news is there of Socrates?
Socrates is well and calm. Xanthippe is with him now for their last meeting.
Citizens! I must be heard. I am owed a hearing.
That is Meletus speaking now.
So I've read plenty of stories and plenty of different tellings about the death of Socrates. I've seen some interpretations which see Socrates going to death as like a final fulfillment of like an intellectual curiosity of like what happens after death. Like he's going to where he can find the answer there. I don't know what that's based on, but I always found it kind of interesting.
He was the main accuser at the trial.
In the marketplace, there are people who are
Maybe-
hungry for my life.
Maybe we should do the Aristophanes video from OST. I think that could be kind of cool. We'll see. Is it OST or OSP? I don't know.
The same people who urged me to accuse Socrates.
I'll look for it.
Is this justice? Is this reason? I did not want Socrates to be condemned to death. I thought he would be fined as I would have been and gladly paid it had the jury found my accusations false. But where are you now, those of you who voted against Socrates? Why don't you defend me? I did my duty as a citizen. I spoke for Athens, for democracy. Socrates would not accept the verdict. He forced the death penalty. He offered no other way out. He twisted my words and he twisted our intentions and brought this end upon himself. But Anytus this very morning offered to look aside and allow Socrates to escape. Crito knows this. He spoke to Anytus. Let Crito say.
Drinking hemlock and dying to own your political enemies. Like he was a Chad. I feel it. I've had times where I'm like, where like I'm at a certain level of petty where I can kind of understand.
Now, if I lie.
It is true.
Hi, Neron. Good to have you back.
Escape was arranged and offered to Socrates. He refused.
Why did he refuse? He prefers to die. Socrates prefers it. Not Meletus, not Anytus. Thank you,
OSP.
Crito. Thank
Gotcha.
you for
Just making
revealing
sure.
the truth.
I'm just making sure we're talking about the same thing. You could have been talking about a creator that I wasn't familiar with, but yeah, OSP. I would love to check out some more of their stuff. I don't want to do it every week, but once every few weeks, I want to throw one of their videos in the playlist.
Socrates always said that Meletus was of little consequence in the whole matter. An earnest but unhappy, misled young man.
Socrates is not going to die! Anytus has agreed to free him. Anytus told it to Plato and Xenophon 5 minutes ago. Socrates!
There have been
Yay!
rumors like this all day, and they were found to be false. Ned Calmer, can you confirm this? Is Socrates to be released?
Birds.
Ned Calmer in the courtyard of
Doves?
Anytus' home.
Oh,
There's
they're
no
they're
sign
about to
here of
hump.
any such event. As you can see, there are Plato and Xenophon still waiting for Anytus to hear them the last time. Citizen Plato, has Anytus acted in some manner to free Socrates?
Popular resentment and confusion could well...
Here comes Anytus now, and that is Polycrates, one of his main advisors.
Observe, Polycrates, our two young philosophers, so nobly devoted to the cause of spreading truth.
The sun is sinking fast, Anytus, and so with it, perhaps your regime.
What shall I think of such truth seekers, who in my own home and behind my back bribe one of my slaves to incite all of Athens with the cruel lie that Socrates has been freed?
You would not debate with us. You kept us waiting until we get buried. No longer we had to act. To prove to you the true will and desire of Athens.
Socrates was offered his life. If he chooses now to die, it's his will, not mine.
He chooses to live, but not as a man adjudged guilty.
You are urging us then to subscribe not only to a complete pardon, but also to the rightness of his belief.
I am urging you only to look after your own beliefs. For if Socrates dies now, it is yours which will be judged and condemned.
Time is running out. I don't want Socrates to die. You say you don't want Socrates to die. Why, at every step of the trial, your master's been offered the mildest of punishments. Even the demand for death was proposed as a way for him illegally to claim another jurisdiction. But he insisted on testing his beliefs with his life. What do you propose that I should do?
Free him. Free him without condition.
I have no power to free him. No one man in Athens has that power. He was condemned by a majority of 500 jurymen.
At your request, Anytus.
At his own insistence. We're back to fruitless debate.
Assume the power and free him.
I cannot break the laws, which I cherish beyond my own or Socrates' private welfare.
The will of the majority is now that Socrates must not die. As a true believer in the principles of majority...
This is kind of like bureaucracy, like getting in the way of democracy, I suppose. But like democracy also says that he should probably die because like the decision was made, but now they're kind of having buyer's remorse or something. That's not the right term. They're having remorse.
You should carry out that belief in the intention of your laws, and not bind yourself by their stupid inadequacies.
You're very clever young men, aren't you? You know how to twist an argument to your own advantage almost as cleverly as does Socrates himself. But when all is said, there remain two opposing principles: a way of life and a way of government. I've risked my life before, and I shall risk it again for my beliefs. If Socrates chooses to die for his, and this is his way of warring on mine, I can't blame him, but I can't save him.
Are these your last words, Anytus?
They are. I can feel no remorse in this old man's wish to die, Polycrates. But what a great sorrow it is that so penetrating a thinker and a patriot and a gentle lover of his city should be lost to the cause of our enemies and his. Ah, well. So be it, Socrates. May the gods in the future find proper honors for you.
We have word that all preparations for the execution have been completed. We take you back to Harry Marble now, inside the prison, where the authorities have permitted us to witness the end.
We are in the cell now. Socrates has requested that he be allowed to bathe himself, and he is still in the bath chamber with Crito. At the wall to the right, you see Apollodorus. The young man with him is Critobulus.
I wonder if he gets like a final meal.
And there on your right are Simmias and Phaedo and Ceres. To your left,
like on Death Row,
Terpsian, who came from Megara. Before he went to bathe, Socrates engaged in a long discourse on the meaning of the soul's immortality. It was as if he was speaking out in the marketplace, and there was nothing in his behavior to suggest that
hey, it's your boy
was about to die. Here he comes now.
I was just
Here is
saying
Socrates.
to Crito that the women will be happily relieved now of having to wash me after my death. But Crito sees no humor in that, do you, Crito?
I was not thinking of the problems of the women.
How shall we bury you, Socrates, he asks me sadly, in the bath chamber. We have spoken here for an hour or more, and we have all agreed that upon drinking the poison, my body will remain here, but my soul will go to the joys of the blessed. Yet these words still have no effect on Crito. I cannot make him believe that I will be the same Socrates who has conducted this argument. He fancies another Socrates, a dead body, and would still worry about my hard lot. Apollodorus, he says, has brought you a fine garment, Socrates. Is that true, Apollodorus?
I have it here. I thought you might desire to wear it for such an occasion.
And what is my own? Good enough to live in, but not to die in.
The thought seemed proper.
Very clever.
I do not mean to offend you, Socrates.
If I were to be offended, my dear friend, it would not be for this, but for your belief that you must bury me in splendor or grief. You know that I am a man who has cast off the pleasure and ornaments of the body and sought the pleasure of knowledge. Do you not wish to honor me for that?
It is my most profound wish.
This guy is
I think I am
great.
well adorned. I have arrayed myself not in some foreign attire, but I hope in the true jewels of temperance and justice and courage and truth. Thus, if you wish to lay me out in finery, lay me out in these, and be of good cheer in so doing. As for the manner of burying my body, do with that what is usual and what you think best. The sun is almost down. Of what else shall we speak? What, is there nothing else? Have you already buried me? Is this the funeral?
Why did you refuse the chance to escape?
I thought I'd already answered that question, Phaedo. Do you remember what I said at the trial?
You said that if Athens could not endure your discourses and cross-examinations, that it would be irrational to expect that in a foreign city you would be more welcome.
I said more.
You said that to discourse daily on virtue and the greatest good of man is your life's purpose. And if not allowed that right, you would have no more reason to live.
Yeah, Mike, this is very good dialogue. This is like the point in pretty much every episode where kind of the fact that it's supposed to be a news broadcast fades into the background and it just feels like a movie. But like an especially immersive movie. The way it pulls you in with it feeling so down to earth and it's like news broadcasty sort of framing. But then it pulls you in and suddenly it's doing like this amazing back and forth with these two characters. And we're only 14 minutes in. We still have over 10 minutes left on this, which is insane to me.
Do you agree with that, Phaedo?
I do. But I'm still troubled. No one in Athens wants you to die. Not even Anytus.
Are they anxious so for my body or my beliefs?
I would say for your name, your being.
Did they condemn my name or my being or my beliefs?
Your beliefs.
And what are my beliefs? My name, my body, my being?
Your being.
Then they are anxious for my being to live?
No.
This is like perfect for Socrates, like, because he's all questions. And that's what he's known for being. Like, he was all questions up until the end. That's kind of his approach to arguments. You just ask questions. And I think it's brilliant. It's like a lot of times in modern arguments and debate, you find people who are so anxious to speak and so afraid of letting their opponent in a debate or conversation speak. Socrates, it does not appear like he was afraid of letting his opposition speak. He was very firm in his beliefs, and very much honest in his debate, in that he was like really willing to engage with his opponent. Velvet Head, I don't know how many episodes of this show there are. Not all of them are available online, though I have been able to find more. I've been able to find some DVDs that I'm hoping to get a set of, and maybe I'll be able to do more of these on stream in the future. So far, I've done one on the American Revolution for the channel members when I was first trying it out. We did Titanic last week. We're doing Socrates here. And apparently there's one on Julius Caesar that somebody was able to find, so I'm going to have to see if I can find that maybe for next week. But in the future, I don't know how many episodes I'm going to be able to actually get my hands on. But these are amazing. There's like 6 seasons of this show.
Then what are they offering me?
To live bodily without your being.
Is that a manner of living, Phaedo, or of death?
A manner of death.
Then what am I being offered?
Death.
Thank you, Phaedo. A few more questions. If I choose for my body to die, do my beliefs continue?
They do.
And my beliefs are my being.
Our beliefs are all our beings.
Then what am I choosing?
I would say you are choosing to live.
And that is what Anytus knows as well. And that is why he would permit me to escape into exile. For in so doing, I would truly renounce my life. I am choosing to live thereby, and not to die.
Dude, what a beast.
You still seem puzzled, Apollodorus.
I know that death is a matter which must befall each of us. I know that in dying a man may do with it good or evil. But I ask if a man does not have a responsibility to his friends and to his children. And if in refusing to go on living, this will not be seen as an act of desertion of responsibility.
That's a good comeback, dude. Like that's really good. And he's hitting Socrates with his own method here. He's just asking questions. Yeah, Socrates, if you're going, do you just owe yourself? Or do you owe yourself, like, that you be true to yourself, or do you have an additional obligation to friends and family and the people that you leave behind? Are you obligated to leave a bit of yourself behind to be around for them? That's pretty smart.
Friends.
It's a good comeback.
To his children. And if in refusing to go on living, this will not be seen as an act of desertion of responsibility.
Let's see how he comes back.
A good question. I will try to answer it, but you must help me, Apollodorus. On what principle is my responsibility to my friends based?
To receive their friendship and to return it.
And of what does friendship consist?
To be good in all things toward each other?
You're repeating yourself.
Yes. Yes, I am. To give the best of oneself to the other.
What is the best of me? My money, my property?
Oh. And he's saying if he loses himself, he can't give him the best of himself to his friends. Like, he will no longer be the best of himself.
Socrates?
Well, how did I come by those teachings?
By your purpose to search for truth.
And you admit that I must give up that purpose in escaping? Would I then be serving my friends with the best of me?
No.
Ooh.
With what would I be serving them?
With our desires to see you live.
Is it your desire to see me live without purpose?
Oh, man.
Do not weep, dear friend. Or if you must, leave us, I pray you. As for my children, I did not agree on bringing them into this world, that for their material comfort I should at some time dishonor my principles. When my boys are grown, I ask you, O my friends, trouble them as I have troubled you.
I must speak to Socrates. I would not be your friend otherwise.
The sun is near the rim. I must proceed now by the orders given me.
You have brought the poison? I will try to answer you, Crito. You asked me the question this morning and I didn't answer you. I have been thinking how to answer it because the question puzzles me deeply as well. Can you wait? Is the sun all but down?
I have waited much beyond the time allowed. For I, too, do not wish to see you die, Socrates. Do not be angry with me now if I tell you that the sun is indeed gone beyond the hilltop, and I have been holding it back only in my mind.
Tell me, how do I proceed now? Shall I have any senses left between the drinking and the effect?
It is usual that it takes some moments for the numbness to start.
Describe it to me.
You walk about until there is a heaviness in your legs. Then it will be best to lie down. The poison will then work from your legs upward.
Will you give the cup to my friend Crito?
Fare you well, Socrates. You know I must do my errand.
I thank you for your good wishes, and I know that you are generous in your sorrow. Crito, I will try to answer your question. Since I have never claimed to know the truth itself, but only how, better than any man, how to search for it, how do I now know that I am in right in what I'm doing, in the manner of my life and of my death?
I ask no answer. You were and are the wisest, the most honorable of men. I wish it were that I could drink this poison and spare you.
Thank you, Crito. You would spare me nothing, and I would then grieve deeply for you. What is the answer? The answer is that in doubting the truth as others found it, I had to search for my own. It's not what I discovered as truth that may be so right, but that I taught how to discover what is false, and only in so doing can the truth be known. By that principle of teaching, I feel secure in my manner and choice of my life and my death. Have I answered you satisfactorily, Crito? You deceive me, Crito, but I have answered myself satisfactorily, and no doubt you will think more about it tomorrow. My dear friends, may my journey prosper now from this to that other world. Gods of this great earth, and of my beloved city of Athens, grant me this prayer.
Yeah, it was always framed as kind of a curiosity. Like, hey, this is just another journey for Socrates. It's really hard to imagine where his head really was at. How much is posturing? How much is the genuine man? I don't know. It's a lot.
No numbness. Nothing yet.
Now it's like he knows it's happening. It's just gotta wait.
See how the sun goes down in majestic peace and order and beauty. If each man's soul could find such shape and movement as this, the reason and joy of heaven would indeed be on this earth. The numbness gathers upward like a cold night. Crito, I owe a debt to Asclepius. Will you remember to pay it?
I will, Socrates. Is there anything else?
Here he goes. Take us home, Walter, because, like, that didn't, like, hurt immensely or anything.
Thus was the tragic end of Socrates, the barefoot philosopher of Athens, the first master of the method of dialectics in the search for truth. And this knowledge became the property of his friends as well as his enemies, as man's quest continued through the ages for the meaning of freedom and justice and virtue and truth. In Athens that night there was a great sorrow. They could not but grieve for the loss of this stubborn old man, simple and gentle of soul and sharp and clear of mind, who would never let them rest in their comfort and vanity and ignorance. And they were forced to think better and deeper of the true dignity and noble aspirations of man beyond his strivings for luxury, wealth, and power. The cup of poison then became in their minds a test and symbol of high principles and purity. And all who had lived by such goals were bound for centuries after to taste again in some way this bitter brew. What sort of a day was it? A day like all days, filled with those events that alter and illuminate our times. And you were there.
I was there. Dude. That's just... that one was heavy. And you can feel the frustration of the writers. You see, like, these men who are oppressed in their own time for their beliefs, and you don't have to be a communist to sympathize with what the writers of this show were enduring during the time. You really don't. Hey, you hold a belief that is controversial and your whole and people are trying to shut down your livelihood for it. Naturally, that show is the product of that in so many ways. And McCarthy would have denied this program to you, but it is they made it work. They worked quietly, they snuck under the radar, and created some of the best television of the 20th century, it seems. Every episode I've seen has been just amazing. It's so hard to do history for television. The History Channel is like garbage, and shows like this have existed, and it just shows how much better things could be. How much potential, like, what I'm saying is this show could come back. This could come back today and it would be amazing. With the resources that we have, if it's done by honest intellectuals and brilliant writers, this is something that could be done again. So I'm going to try to find the episode on Caesar. Maybe we'll do that one next week. And I'll try to get my hands on some of those DVDs, because I don't want this journey to end. I would love to watch the whole show eventually. It would probably be a big investment, like out of pocket. I'm going, because these are not cheap, these DVDs, but I will get my hands on them somehow. I'll figure out how to bring this stuff to you, and if that doesn't work, I will find the episodes for my viewing pleasure, because I enjoy them. So I hope you all enjoyed that, and we will be continuing the stream a little bit longer.